with me. Just kidding. No, yeah. We don't really do that kind of thing here. But anyways, kind of along those lines, welcome back to the Horse Corner. Today, I'm going to bring you guys all along with me as I do a bulk of my packing for a live show. A live show where I'm going to be showing over 200 models. So there's a lot of prep that goes into this. Folks have been asking me for a YouTube video about live showing for a while, and I felt like this was a great time to be able to do that and to show you guys what all goes on behind the scenes. I'm also trying to make a big effort to do more longer format YouTube videos in the new year, so here we go. Before we get any further along here, I do just want to take a minute to disclaim a couple of things. First and most importantly, this is the way that I prep for a live show. I'm not trying to say that this is the way that you should prep for a live show, or that this is the right way to prep for a live show, or that my way is in any way better than anyone else's way. This is simply a fun way for me to show you guys what all goes into my own live showing planning and prep for me to get ready for a successful show day. Everyone preps differently because everyone's brain works differently, and everyone's show days are going to look different depending on what they show, how much they show, what show they're going to, and so on and so forth. There is no right or wrong, better or worse way to do this. I'm a very type A person. That's the way that my brain is hardwired. I'm also an attorney, and I'm a very structure, logic, outline-based thinker. So a lot of that is reflected in the type of prep and planning that I do for big events like live shows. Again, if your prep doesn't look anything like this, you are still a valid live shower. You are still a valid hobbyist. That is not the point of this video. The point is to show you guys what the process looks like for me, what goes on behind the scenes, because I have had a lot of people ask me to make videos like this, or at least to talk about it more. And it's something that is hard to document, so I haven't done it up to this point, but I did my best here. This is a long video. It's not gonna be for everyone, and that's okay. This is for the people that ask me to share this side of live showing with them. And if you don't wanna watch it, you're valid too. Honestly, I don't know if I would sit down and watch this myself if I didn't have to. So, all of that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so my first step of prep for any live show is going to be to construct this, which is my show spreadsheet, and this is pretty much going to be my Bible for each show. So what this is this specific show's class list. Now, typically, these class lists are going to be shared by the show host. If the show has a website, on the website, Facebook group, in the Facebook group, or otherwise, it'll probably get emailed out. In this case, this class list was available in a couple of different places, but I'm going to transcribe the class list into a Google Sheet like we're looking at right now. I love the Google Suite for my hobby documents, mainly because I can access it from all of my devices. I can access it from my iPad, which we are on right now for this recording, my personal laptop, my work laptop, my phone. If for some reason I need to access it using someone else's device, it's as easy as just logging into my Google account. I have always done it this way for my hobby stuff, and even when I was in school for my school stuff, just because you can literally access it from anywhere. You don't have to have a specific device. I could go on for ages, but that's not why we're here. Google Suite is awesome, and this is a Google Sheets document. Anyways, it's a spreadsheet. It operates very similar to Excel. So I'm gonna have a tab for every division that I'm showing in. Here you can see at the bottom, right now we are in OFP Halter, Briar Traditional. I've also got a tab for OFP Briar Mini, and I've also got a Briar Collectability tab, which obviously tells us that this show is not double judged because Briar Collectability has its own division. And that leads me to the second step, which is closely related to the first, and you can see I've obviously done this here, but the second step of my prep after I have actually created this spreadsheet and it matches the specific show's class list is to select the models that I'm going to show in each class. So here, obviously, columns C and beyond have the names of my models in them. So I've already picked my show string, pretty full divisions here. I've only got a couple of classes that I don't have a completely full set showing. Again, I am going to be showing over 200 horses at this show, so it's going to be a big one for me. And this is a bit of a process. There's a couple of different factors I'm going to talk about that go into it. Long story short, I don't have a set show string that comes with me to every single show. There's honestly only a handful of horses in my collection that I've never taken to a live show with me, and those horses, it would probably be relatively offensive to try to show them because those are the ones that, you know, I played with as a kid, or they have broken ear tips, and for whatever reason, nostalgic or otherwise, I just haven't quite gotten rid of them yet. So I bring a whole big variety of horses to live shows. So actually going through and picking out which horses I'm going to bring to a specific show is a bit of a process. So anyways, I'm gonna kind of just leave this screen up as I walk through the factors that I weigh when I am deciding what to take to a show. First, and I would say the biggest factor that I consider is what has and has not qualified for NAND. So what has NAND and what hasn't NAND. If I've got horses, new horses that I haven't shown before, obviously they have not NAND. And if I'm planning on showing them, they're gonna come with. Similarly, if I have horses that I have taken to shows already, but they haven't really had their moment yet, and I think that it could be possible, those guys are also going to take priority, right? Because I want to try to get them to NAN if I think that they can. I have a completely separate spreadsheet that tracks exactly which of my models have qualified for NAN, what show, division, class they qualified in, and so on and so forth, all of that information. And this is also where my string that I bring with me can really vary across a single judged show versus a double judged show. You know, because your best collectability horses, they're not always going to be your best halter horses, and vice versa is also true. Frequently, I'm gonna have horses that may be NAN qualified in halter, maybe even numerous times over, but for whatever reason, they haven't NAN qualified in collectability. Either they're not very rare, they're not very desirable, or I've just never had the opportunity to show them in collectability. So sometimes I'll bring a horse with me to a double judged show in the hope that it's gonna do well in collectability, even though I don't really expect it to do well in halter. I think a great idea of this, or I'm sorry, a great example of this would be my Burnham, who is this lovely Oasis S Just a Dream model. She was an event model, very limited run, rarely comes up for sale. She's a lovely horse, but due to the kind of anatomical issues that this mold tends to have, as much as I love her, I don't ever really expect her to do well in halter. Sometimes she does, regardless, but I'm not going to walk into a show thinking that this is going to be a top placing Arab mold in halter. However, I think she could have a pretty decent shot at collectability, being that she's so limited in a double judged show. So I weigh that quite heavily. It does dictate what horses I'm going to bring to what shows, whether they have the opportunity to show in collectability or not. This show is not double judged, so obviously the choices I have made here reflect that. Now, to be fair though, if you show enough, there does come a point where you've got plenty of things that are NAN qualified, double NAN qualified, multiple time NAN qualified, and so on, to where it really doesn't matter as much what qualifies and what doesn't, because you probably have more qualified than you would ever be able to show at a single NAN anyways. And that's kind of where I have found myself post Briarfest in 2023. So I started live showing right after NAN 2022, Briarfest 2022. September of 2022 was my first live show. And I have been to over 15 live shows since then. Many have been double judged, which provides so many opportunities to get stuff NAN qualified. And even though we haven't really seen a class list or any materials for NAN 2024 yet at the time of this recording, I am almost positive that I've probably got more qualified than I will physically be capable of showing. Just logistically, there's only so many horses you can put on a table for one class. And so that said, the NAN of it all, so to speak, that can't be the only factor you consider, or at least it's not the only factor I consider when selecting what models to bring with me to a show. Again, I've already kind of talked about the fact that, if a show is double judged or single judged, but outside of that, I'll also take into consideration class structures. Are Briar and Stone separated? Are they competing against each other? Are traditionals and minis separated? Are they competing against each other? Because I have seen, both variations of both of those scenarios, and so on and so forth. A third consideration is who's judging, and whether I'm aware of that judge's style and or preferences. Really, unless you're a big destination shower who travels around the country, maybe even internationally to live show, your models are likely to have been judged by the same person in your region at least a few times. So just like what I do and the way I approach real horse showing, I find that it can be really helpful to attend shows with a watchful eye to see what specific judges are pinning and what their preferences seem to be. Judges are people too, and obviously they are going to have thoughts and opinions about specific molds, even specific artists, and so on. For example, I don't want to say a ton, that is an overstatement. A lot of many judges love the G1 stablemate molds. And some judges you're going to see them pin G1 stablemate molds above almost anything else, even some of these really cool new modern colors and molds in halter classes. And that's just the way that it goes sometimes. They're well within their right to do so, as there's no specific guidelines for judging a model horse show. And if you're aware of some of those preferences from a specific judge going into a show, you can adjust your own show string to kind of align with those preferences if that's possible. And if you choose to do so, it's just something that's worth keeping in mind when you're constructing your show string. Sometimes I know a specific judge probably isn't going to pin a specific horse or mold very highly, and I decide to bring it anyways because it makes me happy and I want to show it to my friends. So just something to consider, not the end-all be-all of picking which horses you're going to take and which ones you're going to leave at home. Still going here, you guys. A fourth consideration that something that I consider, at least when picking my horses, is simply who I want to bring and show off a little bit. Kind of like I had just said, at the end of the day, the strategy and competitive elements of model horse showing are interesting, and they can be really fun if you enjoy the competitive side of the hobby. But ultimately, these are just plastic horses, and at least I do this primarily for the community and the social aspect of it all, and because I like fancily painted plastic horses. I find it to be fun. And so, likewise, it's important to bring horses to a live show that you actually enjoy showing and enjoy having with you at the show. Because if you're not having fun, why are we here? There's nobody's, forcing you to do this. We do it because it's fun and we enjoy it. Hopefully every horse in your collection makes you happy in some way. But absolutely the ones you're bringing with you to a live show, you should enjoy those horses, because it's a big effort to go to a live show and to take all those horses with you. So that is just about it for the spreadsheet and the model selection. Just a quick plug, if you enjoy this spreadsheet and how this looks and you think this is something you might want to do for yourself as you're prepping for live shows, I do sell these as templates in my Etsy shop, which is CWS Model Horse Designs. I'll have the link available in the description, but I do put together a lot of pre-formatted spreadsheets if you're not a spreadsheet wizard, or you would rather just buy an easy download for a couple bucks and fill it out to cater to your needs. I've got a couple of different ones. I've got a collection catalog, a showing catalog, and so on. They are pre-formatted, so take a look. They're pretty much exactly what I use to catalog all of my stuff. So if this looks like something you think would be very useful, definitely check those out. Okay, are you ready to hear me talk for even longer while you watch a recording of my screen? Because that's where we're at still, folks. I never promised that this was going to be terribly entertaining. You're the one that's still with me at this point, so Godspeed. We are at the third step. We're moving on to the third step. So the third step, now that our spreadsheet is constructed to reflect the class list, good God, say that 5 times fast. Our spreadsheet is constructed to reflect the class list, and we've got a perfectly catered list of horses that we're going to show depending on what my goals are for a specific show, what I've got to bring, and what the situation is. We are on to the third step, which is where I'm going to determine which, if any, of these horses that were in that spreadsheet that we stared at for 10 minutes need new reference cards, or need reference cards at all if they are a new model. So the number of new reference cards I need to make for a particular show is going to depend, obviously, on how many new models I'm showing, how many models I've assigned new breeds, and then also, again, whether the show is double judged, which will likely mean that there's going to be a ton of models that need collectability references if I want them to be considered for the collectability pinnings, which we'll get to. For this specific show, I think I needed to make about 15 or 20 new reference cards, which we can just swipe through some of these briefly. I don't have any qualms with showing you guys my reference cards because they have my logo on them. That is on branding, my friends. So yeah, I had about 15 or 20 new reference cards that I needed to make for this show, which in the grand scheme of things is not too bad. That number can range literally from 0 to in the hundreds, depending on the show that I am going to go to and what I'm bringing. A lot of the models I needed to make reference cards for this show were new models that I'm showing for the first time at this particular show. So that's generally going to be my holiday purchases, as well as some of the late 2023 Breyer releases. I have already done all of that at this point, and I do print all of my reference cards from home, from the horse corner, using my little printer. And then I also have a laminator at home that I use. I do personally strongly recommend laminating your reference cards. I'll just swipe through here. There's some more of these, let you guys see what I've got. Even above just printing reference cards on photo paper, I do strongly recommend the laminated reference cards. They're going to be more durable and stand up better to spills, tears, folds, squashings, and pretty much everything else in between. Again, small plug here, but if you are needing guidance with any of your reference card making, whether it be halter or collectability, I do also sell templates for my reference cards that come in a myriad of different colors and designs. They are templates. You cannot sell pre-existing reference cards that have someone else's photos on them. That's a topic for a different video. But I do sell templates that come with an example and instructions, and then obviously the blank template for you to work from to make your own cards. And yeah, they've won lots of accolades, so give them a look, and they definitely work for me. Most of them are structured at least somewhat similarly to what you are seeing in this video here as I just scroll through some of my examples. Okay, so the fourth step is going to be to construct my show binders. This is where I'm going to keep all of my documentation for the show. So all of those reference cards that we were just looking at in the screen recording on my iPad, they are printed out and they're physical and they're laminated and they go in these lovely binders. My binder setup is entirely going to depend on the class list, the division structure, and the divisions that I plan on showing in, and now there are 2. Oh, that's what you get, sweet cat. Generally, if the show has traditional and mini, my setup is going to be like what you can see here, meaning that I'm going to have 2 binders. One is for traditional, the thick boy, and then one is going to be for mini, which is the slightly thinner boy. When I set up my table at a live show, all of my traditionals are going to stand on the table in their racks with their reference cards out and next to them in their little racks. However, my minis are far too small for the same structure and organization to be possible. So the minis are going to stand next to each other in their own racks, but their reference cards, I'm going to have their reference cards in a stack accessible to me on the table. And in each stack, I'm going to have the reference cards for a specific section. So I am going to swap this stack out based on whatever section of showing we're currently on. So for example, I will have all of my mini stock horse references out during the mini stock section. During the callbacks of that section, I am going to pull out my references for whichever section comes after stock, and I'm going to put stock away, and then so on and so forth throughout the day. So there's a difference in how I have access to these references for each of the divisions at the actual show. Now that said, it helps me to have 2 separate binders so that I am not holding this thick boy, which is considerably thinner than it could be. When these divisions are both double judged, this binder is easily that thick. I mean, add another 2 inches, maybe 3. This is a 3.5 inch binder. So when it's like overflowing, she's thick. So that said, it helps me to have the minis separate because that way I'm not lugging out this massive binder every couple of classes to swap mini reference cards back. So if you see in the mini ones, I just have these dividers and I keep the cards for each section in a sleeve. And I just grab the stack, pull it out, put it on my table, put the stack back when the section's over, and so on and so forth. If they're not separate, meaning if traditional and mini are not separated, obviously I'm just going to bring the big guy and they're all going to be in their sleeves Each horse gets a slot. So that's rare. Typically a show is going to have mini and traditional separated. If it doesn't, I just bring the one binder. And then similarly, if a show is double judged, this would have 2 cards instead of 1. There would be a collectability card behind the halter card here, but instead here I've just got a back section which just says other, where I've got all of my collectability reference cards because the collectability is separate from halter at this show. So again, depends highly on how the show is structured. My binder structure depends highly on how the show is structured. But this is what it looks like for this show specifically. Like you kind of saw, the tabs are broken out by section, and then here the binders themselves are broken out by division. So my binder organization actually matches the show class list organization. So there's a rhyme and reason to all of it. And so these binders are completely packed up for this specific show. All the new reference cards that I had mentioned before are in there, and these are ready to go. So this is a full set of 2 binders for showing 200 models, 200 plus. And since we're on the topic of binders and reference cards too, I'll take a minute to kind of talk about my philosophy with referencing, because it is a little bit different than that of some people. And this can get a little bit controversial, but this is just the way that I do it. Everybody is different. I'm a bit of a reference card fanatic. I love you. I love doing breed research, and I love making reference cards. It's honestly one of my favorite parts of live showing or model horse showing in general. I love learning about new breeds and color genetics and all of that stuff. I always have. I grew up just reading horse glossaries and books and all of that stuff for fun. So I love the science behind breeding, and I find all of that information very fascinating. Maybe that's also to do somewhat with my education and the amount of research I have to do literally every day at work. I don't know, but I find it very peaceful and very fun, and also it can be very artistic, which I enjoy that kind of organizational side of art. So it's something that I enjoy quite a bit, and a lot of people don't, and that is also very valid. It's a lot of work, and if it's not something that you enjoy, then I can absolutely understand that it would be something that you would not find joy in at all. Everybody's different, and for some reason my brain is wired in a way that a good reference card just scratches an itch that nothing else can. So all of that said, I reference every horse that I'm going to put on a table. Unless for some reason I forgot the card, or it's literally a horse I bought that day. Every horse I put on a table is going to have a reference. And every horse I put on a table at a double judged show is going to have 2 references. One halter and one collectability. Now that is so far from being what is required. Typically only collectability and performance are going to actually require some kind of a reference. That's the way that I run my photo show series, and again, that's how NAMSA runs, shows that are NAMSA qualified, and presumably, also how they run NAND. So you've got lots of governing bodies that say, hey, you don't have to do it this way. I just like to. You'll see a lot of folks who just reference their more rare breeds or abnormal colors. I'm in the very, very vast minority of people who are going to reference every single horse. And just to be abundantly clear, I do this because I like it. I enjoy finding photos that most closely represent my models and constructing the cards themselves. I find it fun. I've also had experiences where judges have told me that where there might be duplicates of the same model that are in all other ways equal. Sometimes a good reference can elevate an entry like that to stand out amongst all the duplicates. And sometimes maybe they will choose to pin the one that's referenced, but as I've mentioned, every judge is different. That's definitely not a universal truth. There aren't many of those in model horse showing, and a reference card definitely isn't automatically going to pin your horse higher. But I figure I enjoy it, so why not give all of my horses the best shot they could possibly have and make them look pretty in the process. The fifth step is Cookie's favorite because it involves string. He loves the string. The fifth step is also sometimes necessary, sometimes not at all necessary. Sometimes I'll combine this step with what I'm going to refer to as the sixth step in this video, and sometimes it gets its own place. It kind of just depends on the situation and how many of these I actually have to make. And that's going to be tagging models. Right, Cookie? He loves tagging because when I mess up, he gets the tag and he gets to play with it, and it's the best day of his life. So because I had so many new models and so many breed references that were new for this show, I did take the time to actually make new tags before I've started packing horses. Again, sometimes I do this as I pack, sometimes I do it before. You can see there's a pretty thick stack going on there. So, and that's just for the traditionals, and I may have missed a few. We will find out. It's an adventure. So I have already made what I believe to be all of the new tags I'm gonna need for this show. Again, typically, if I don't need any new tags, I'm just gonna check a model's tag as I'm packing it up to make sure that it accurately reflects both the model's name and the breed I'm showing it as in this particular show that I'm packing for. That's if I don't have any new tags to make. For the models that do need the new tags, I will tag them as I'm packing. So once it's their turn to be packed up, they will get their tag and then they will get packed up. Easy peasy. So for this show, tagging was its own independent step. I would argue that that's pretty rare with the exception of Breyer shows where you have to make new tags for every single show because you have a different entrant identification number for every show. I know that there are some regions that do that for their own local live shows. I have never shown in a region that has done it that way before. The only time I've ever had to do that are the Breyer sanctioned shows that I have competed in. We're talking the Breyerfest Open Show and the Breyer West Open Show. So as you can see, my traditionals live with their tags on. I don't love this. I wish that I didn't feel like I needed to do it this way. And I've considered not doing it this way multiple times. I've considered taking all their tags off, organizing them, and then re-tagging them every time I pack for a live show just for the aesthetics because I hate so much seeing those little tags. It's so annoying. Anyways, but at this point, with how much I'm live showing, that's just not feasible. Maybe someday when I inevitably slow down in my live showing adventures, whether that's because I decide to have children or because my real horse showing picks back up or whatever the situation might be, maybe at that point in my life it'll be a possibility, but right now when I am going to at least one live show every month, if not more frequently more than that, typically it's 2 these days, it is just absolutely absurd for me to untag, organize, and re-tag over 100 traditional models every other weekend. It would be silliness. So for now, they live tagged, and I just grind my teeth and deal with it. My minis, however, are going to get tagged and untagged every single time they leave their shelves. This is simply because I don't have enough room for them all to stand on their shelves with their tags, because their tags are almost as big as they are. I used to do it that way, and it just looked terrible and it was so unorganized and it took up so much space. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm just gonna bite the bullet and I'm gonna have to untag them after every single show. But I do show the minis less frequently than I show the big guys, just because not every show is gonna have a separate mini division. So it's not quite as painful to have to tag and untag the mini show string as it hypothetically would be with the traditionals. So now I believe that I have made all the tags that I need. However, when you're showing over 200 horses, there's bound to be something that I have missed. So I'm just going to check every single model I pack, make sure that it has a tag, and make sure that that tag is accurate. And of course, I'm gonna bring blank extra tags, plenty of them, with me to the live show to have in my little pouch in case tags get lost in transit, which does happen, or they wind up being inaccurate and for whatever reason I thought that they were correct when I packed them. Okay, so the 6th step is actually packing the models. And this is the first step that I haven't actually done like in any capacity. I think that I've done all of the 5th one. I'll probably have to make some tags as we go because I did my best, but you know. But I haven't actually done anything by way of packing. So that's what we are going to start with, the actual like real steps you get to watch me do. Hooray! And so I have these large totes. The big ones are for my traditionals. And then I've got that tiny one on top with the beige lid for my minis. I'm a bit of a freak and I do try to use one specific color of pony pouch in each tote just so there's a theme. No rhyme or reason to that, just because I think it looks nice. So there's no deeper meaning there. And I do have 2 different color pouches that you'll see. One is, let's see if you can see them in the mini tote. One is this kind of navy, white, and hunter green plaid. And then I also just have the solid hunter green, the mini totes, and I'm sorry, the mini pouches and the traditional pouches are the same colors, same design. Obviously these ones are just stablemate scale. These ones are traditional scale. Oh, and I do have a handful of the Briar pouches, which do, in an ironic turn of events, match the rest of my pouches because they are a navy and white, which is in my plaid. So they all tie together, which is great. So for a show like this, I anticipate having at least 5 or 6 big totes full of traditionals. I've got all of my totes out here just because I pushed this all out as a unit, but I anticipate filling, honestly, most of these. Maybe there will be like 1 or 2 left over when we're done. And then all the minis should fit in the small tote. It's gonna be tight with over 100 minis going, but they should fit. So, okay, with this many horses coming, there does have to be a rhyme and reason to how they get packed and what order they get packed in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start packing at the end of the class list, the very last class of the day, and then work upwards to the very first class of the day. That way, when I open the first tote at the show hall, the first horses that I need to actually put on a show table to compete are going to be the first horses available to me to unload. When you have this many horses, you absolutely have to have a rhyme or a reason to how you pack them, or else you are not going to have enough time in the morning to get organized. Thank God, one of the reasons that I'm able to bring so many to this show is that it has Friday night setup. So I'll have a couple hours Friday night to get everything set up, which is a godsend, to be honest. I typically am not going to bring this many to a show that doesn't allow Friday night setup, just because there's simply not enough time in the morning between when the show host opens the show hall for setup and when the show is going to start. I've done it before and it is just really, really crazy. I don't know if I would do it again, but because this show allowed for Friday night setup, I decided I would do another 200 model show. So here we are. Okay, and here you can see that on the top of the totes, I am going to have labels. So I'm gonna have these sheets printed out that tell me exactly what section is in this tote. That way I can cross-reference these labels with the class list to determine which totes and which sections I need to get out first and that need to be unloaded onto my table first. So this is not for the current show. This was obviously for a show in the past. This tote would have had my draft ponies, all of them, and then a few of my sport and gaited horses probably sprinkled on the top. That's how that works. So each one of these totes will have a label that tells me what's in it so that I know what order to unload them in when I get to the show. When we're packing up to leave, all bets are off. Anything can go anywhere. It literally does not matter. But when we are unloading, this is very important. For this specific show, the stock horse division is last. So that means that the first division I'm going to pack for is going to be stock. And the very first class I'm going to pack for is going to be the very last class of the day, which is other pure mixed stock. And then I'll work up to the first stock class of the day, which is quarter horse. After stock, I will work back through the other 4 sections of the show and get all of them packed away. So first, we are going to start with stock. Okay, so now I have gotten everything all unpacked and I am ready to start pulling horses off shelves and putting them into pony pouches and putting those pouches into totes. So here we go. Well, a member of my support staff is making it incredibly hard to start packing right now. So maybe we'll start packing tomorrow night. Okay, so I paused for the night. Obviously, this is the next morning, so you get to see me in my PJs because this is the reality of packing up for a live show. It doesn't have to be super glamorous. I'm squatting around on the floor for hours, so hey, I'm gonna at least be comfortable. So these are all of my stock horses laid out on the carpet. I like to break them out on the floor by section like this before I actually pack them up, just so that I can visualize everything I have for a specific section and make sure I'm not missing anything. This is typically going to be about 3 models per class. Okay, and once I know that I have all of the horses that I want to pack for a particular section out on the carpet, like you just saw, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pack them. Here I am doing a little inspection of each model, maybe cleaning up some spots, dusting, whatever each model needs. I don't always have to do this. Here I'm doing it because it's been at least 2 months since any of these models have been to a live show, so I do want to inspect them. Also with Nan coming up, I do want to make sure that my models are in tip-top condition, so if any of them need any pinpoint repairs, little ear rub repairs, hoof rub repairs, I'm going to make note of that. Here we have lots of cats. Welcome to my home. So anyways, I'm doing some extra inspecting here. Again, I don't always do this, especially if I have quite a few shows in a row, kind of consecutively. There's no need unless I know that something happened to a specific model at a show and it needs a repair. Typically, if it's been out within the last month, I know it's good to go. But here, again, a long time had passed between my last show and with Nan coming up. I am just trying to make sure that all of my models are living their best lives in their best conditions so that I'm not absolutely mad dashing to do a bunch of small repairs the month before Nan. You can never start too early. Cookie might disagree with that. He would rather just lay around on the carpet and get kisses. But that's not what we're here to do. Well, not exclusively. So, anyways. Alright, and here is my tote tower of all my traditionals all packed up. I wound up actually bringing 6 totes to the show after repairs and sales got added into the mix. Alright, and then this is actually my favorite little clip here. This is me packing up my minis. And it's so fun because you can see the minis actually on my shelf just like slowly disappearing. And then below you can see the little tote slowly filling up. So that's really fun. And I also love minis. They bring me so much joy. They're like little potato chips. So I think this is my favorite clip. Packing up minis is a little bit more difficult in my opinion than packing up traditionals because I do obviously, like we talked about, tag each of them as I'm packing them up. They are not pre-tagged, so it takes a while. Okay, so we fast forwarded in time a couple of weeks here, and it is the Thursday before show day, which means that tonight we are packing up the truck to leave tomorrow morning. This is a faraway show. It's about an 8-hour drive, so I took Friday off work to drive up, be able to unload Friday night, and then obviously show Saturday, drive home on Sunday. So that means that Thursday night is for packing, and y'all, I did not go to the gym because I'm gonna get my cardio in. Just carrying all of the stuff upstairs and loading it into my truck. So here we go. Also, just really quick, this is how sad and empty the shelves look when I have that many horses packed away for a show. Even the mini shelves, they look so sad. Okay, that's all. All right, new location unlocked. We are now in the garage, loading up my truck with all of these many totes. I always make sure that my truck is all cleaned out. I have a car wash subscription. It is probably the best adult investment I've ever made. Strongly recommend. And I make sure the truck is all vacuumed and clean and fresh for show weekends, especially ones that involve this long of a road trip. And you can see playing a little bit of tote Tetris in the back, but they all fit. Okay, so the bed is all sealed up with all of the totes. And then, we have even more stuff in here. So much stuff. And this is the result of all of that work. This is how my business display and show models look all set up at the live show. I have 2 tables at this live show, thank goodness, or else it would not have all fit. And we are ready to have a successful show day in the morning.